Everyone to the first season review of Grand Prix Manager 2, the 1986 mod. Now, what I'm going to do is give you a quick, brief report of the qualifying and the race of each track of each season of the Grand Prix Manager 2 game. So we're starting off with the first season, where the drivers are in their original teams based on the real-life 1986 season of Formula 1. So, without further ado, let's make our way to the first circuit, the Brazilian Grand Prix. These are the qualifying results from the Brazilian Grand Prix, and as we can see, our two drivers, Genzani was qualified in impressive 6th place, while Alex Cafe was all the way down in 22nd. So it was clear that Genzani was going to be the better driver, and I looked at the results and we see that Alain Prost took pole position, but his teammate Keke Rosberg was all the way down in 8th place with quite a tiny difference between the two of them. Both Williamses were 2nd and 4th, which was kind of expected. Ayrton Senna was 3rd in his Lotus, while his teammate Dumfries was down in 19th place, which I think was about 3 seconds separating them, which is a big gap. Then we had Philip Streif, who qualified 5th for Tyrrell, and his teammate Martin Brundle is down in 16th place. So some pretty bizarre results, like having one Lewis driving 3rd and the other one all the way down in 19th. But it's the same story of my drivers, one 6th, the other one 22nd. All 26 drivers made the 107% time, which means all 26 cars would be competing. Nobody stalled on the grid for the Brazilian Grand Prix, so we just went straight in. And off the start line, both drivers maintained their positions, which are 6th and 22nd. And we were barely a couple laps into the Brazilian Grand Prix, but we had our first retirement in the form of Martin Brundle in the Tyrrell, who was starting, well, he was roughly around the back of the field, so it didn't really make much of an impact, but that was just the beginning of retirements galore. By the 7th lap, we had Ricard Patrese and Gerhard Berger retiring, and then also Thierry Boutsen, so 3 people retiring roughly the same time as each other. But again, they were roughly on the back of the field, so it didn't make too much impact. Then Patrick Tambay retired from the race, so Alex Cafe and Hub Rothengier retired, Sura and Johansson retired, so we were down to 17 cars out of 26, and we were only like 10 laps into a 58 lap race. My eyes were on Pecco Genzani because he was the only driver left, but when he came out of the pits, Nigel Mansell, who was in 4th place, had retired, putting Philip Streif into 4th, Genzani to 5th, and Keke Rosberg into a points position. Alain Prost maintained his lead over Senna in 2nd place and Nelson Piquet in 3rd place, and Genzani dropped down to 6th after being overtaken by Keke Rosberg before retiring. But at the same time, Jonathan Palmer had retired with Teo Fabi following suit, and then Michele Alboreto retiring as we were down to 11 cars by lap 29 into this 58 lap race. Lap 48, big jump since it was becoming really quiet until Felix Streif from 4th place retired from the race. That would allow René Arnoux in the Ligier into a points position. Cesaris makes his way up to 5th, Rosberg 4th, but Alain Prost, maintaining his lead, manages to win the first race of the season, with Ayrton Senna taking 2nd place for the Lotus. Nelson Piquet is 3rd for Williams. Prost's teammate Rosberg takes 4th. Andre de Cesaris in the Minardi takes 5th. And finally, René Arnoux rounding out the top 6 for Ligier. Looking at what happened to both our drivers, Genzani had an accident and Alex Cafe had a collision. Not an ideal start to the season for the Ossella boys. The second race, some news. It was about 2 transfers that were made, one from McLaren and the other one from Ferrari. Both of them didn't have a test driver, but, as I said, I will put up the table that shows each transfer. So, McLaren got Ivan Capelli as their test driver, and at Ferrari, their test driver is Bruno Giacomelli. Now, I don't know if that's pronounced right, it probably isn't, but we'll just assume it's that way. So let me bring up the table just now. Now, if you can see this, the table at this point, Ivan Capelli joining McLaren and Bruno Giacomelli joining Ferrari. Now, you may notice 2 Ossella drivers, Alan Berg and Alex Caffey. Now, Alan Berg was originally going to be the second driver, but I've realised Alex Caffey's stats are much better than Berg, so I decided to permanently switch their positions. So Alan Berg will be the test driver from now on, and Alex Caffey will go from test driver to being the driver number 2. So, with that table updated for you, let's move on to the second round, which was at the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez. Round 2 of the Grand Prix was at Jerez, and as we can see, the qualifying time saw Riccardo Gonzalez taking pole position for Ossella with his teammate Alex Caffey down in 9th place. Both Williams drivers are 2nd and 3rd, ahead of Philippe Strie from turn 4th. Theo Fabi 5th on the grid with his teammate Gerhard Berger all the way down in 14th. 6th place is Martin Brundle, also in the Tyrrell. Then we have both Auers drivers of Mark Surer and Thierry Boutsen, which I thought exceeded expectations, with the McLaren drivers of Keke Rosberg and Alain Prost all the way down in 10th and 11th, and Prost, who won the first race, was so low down the field. And other drivers who I say had underperformed, Ayrton Senna is down 19th alongside his teammate Johnny Dumfries in 20th. Both Ferrari's drivers are at 21st and 22nd. And I would say that's all the drivers who I feel like should have done better with what cars they had, as well as their driver skill. But hopefully in the Grand Prix that their performances will improve more than they performed in qualifying. After the start of the race, both drivers maintained the positions, Gonzalez holding the lead and Alex Caffey holding in 9th place. So it didn't seem too much of an impact was made in the race early on. However, Philippe Strie got a pit stop, 10-second stop-go penalty, and that put him out of the points. So he loses 4th position and puts Caffey to 8th. Berger and Rosengate both retire pretty early in the race. By about the 21st lap of the Grand Prix, Gonzalez and Theo Fabi retired at the same time from 1st and 2nd place, leaving Ossella with Alex Caffey to hopefully gain some points. Though Alex Caffey so far hasn't been the quicker driver out of the Ossella driver, so I wasn't really expecting him to make much of an impact, especially when we had bad luck in the pits as his pit stop got delayed and it dropped him out of the points down into 8th place. Alex Caffey was not making any positions up, stuck in 9th place. Thierry Boutsen retired from 3rd place in his Arrows, which didn't really help much. All it did was put Alex Caffey 1 position closer to the points, but he was still 2 places behind, with Prix and Keke Rosberg in front of him, one in the Brabham and the other one is in the McLaren. And Caffey dropped down to 10th because Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari had passed him, or I thought he did, until Caffey jumped back into 8th place. With very little activity at the end of the race, it literally looked like it was set in stone to the end of the race, until all of a sudden Mark Surer in the Arrows had retired from 2nd place, putting Philippe Strie into a podium position, and Martin Brundle was promoted to 2nd place, and Nigel Mansell, who won the Jerez Grand Prix. Prost was finished in 5th, Ricard Patrese finished in 6th to round off the top 6 who scored points. Mark Surer returned with a gearbox failure at pretty much the end of the race, very gutting for him. But the championship standings showed Alan Prost was still leading the Drivers' Championship, with Mansell in second, Brundle and Senna tied in third place, while Ossella stuck in the bottom 5 with no points. Round 3 of the first season of the 1986 mod at Imola for the San Marino Grand Prix, both Bentons took the front row, with Patrick Tomby in third place, Ayrton Senna was in 4th, with Gonzani in 5th, and Johnny Dumfries, the other Lotus driver, in 6th. Alex Caffey down in 9th, just behind the winner of the last race, which is Nigel Mansell. The current leader of the championship, which is Alain Prost, starting in 7th place, where his teammate Keke Rosberg's down in 14th in the grid. Alessandro Nannini in the Minardi and Alan Jones for the Haas Lola both failed to make the 107% time, and then thus far not going to be racing for the third round of the Grand Prix. On the formation lap, Jonathan Palmer stalled his car, who qualified 10th in the grid, and therefore will be starting from the back of the field. So the race got underway, no one else stalled, so Jonathan Palmer would come out in last place, which is 24th position. Gonzalez maintained 5th place, and Alex Caffey maintained 9th. The Alex Caffey had lost a lot of positions after the first pit stop had completed, but suddenly Alain Prost and Theo Fabi had retired. Fabi, who was in 2nd, and Prost, who is currently leading the Drivers' Championship, having retired. Gonzani was now holding 3rd place, just ahead of Nigel Mansell, Patrick Tomby and Michele Alboreto, who were closely behind him. Shortly after Theo Fabi and Prost's retirement, Nigel Mansell from 4th place in the Williams had also retired from the Grand Prix. Berger was still leading, with Ayrton Senna in 2nd, Gonzalez was in 3rd, Tomby 4th, Alboreto 5th, and Johnny Dumfries in the Lotus is now in the points position. Once Gonzalez had finished his 2nd pit stop, he drops down to 4th, just behind Michele Alboreto, while still being ahead of Keke Rosberg and Nelson Piquet. That was pretty much how the race ended. Gerhard Berger won the race, with Ayrton Senna taking 2nd place and Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari finishing in 3rd place. More importantly for Ossella is Gonzani taking 4th place, Nelson Piquet 5th, and Stefan Johansson gained the last points for the 2nd Ferrari. Round 4 of the Grand Prix at Monte Carlo, and it was an all-Ossella front row, with both Terrells taking the 2nd row. Gerhard Berger for Benetton was in 5th, and Alain Prost for McLaren was down in 6th place. Andre De Cesaris taking 7th for Minardi. Ayrton Senna, who came 2nd in the last Grand Prix, qualified down in 13th, where his teammate Johnny Dumfries was down in 23rd. Theo Fabi, Berger's teammate, was down in 14th position, but ironically Nigel Mansell was all the way down in 15th in the grid. Which begs the question, why are these drivers suddenly struggling? I mean, they're great drivers. They should be up the front, but they seem to be stuck in the midfield, with even they have probably the best cars on the grid, and they seem to be struggling. But then again, Ferrari have been absolutely struggling. I mean, in this Grand Prix, Alboreto and Johansson are 19th and 20th on the grid. What is going on here? At the start of the race, Jonathan Palmer, who qualified 25th in the grid, had stalled his car and retired from the race. Alex Caffey immediately dropped position to Martin Brundle at the start also. So, Jonathan Palmer, the only driver to have stalled his car twice so far this season. It's going to be a chaotic start. Nigel Mansell got a 10-second stop go penalty, bringing him to the back of the field in his Williams. And then Alan Jones quickly retiring. But more worryingly, from 4th place, Gerhard Berger had also retired from the Grand Prix, and we're only 7 laps into the race. Gonzalez eventually lost the lead to Martin Brundle, but also it seems to be a horrendously bad race for Williams, as Nelson Piquet had retired. and Mansell, who had a pit stop go penalty, stuck in last place, which that's currently 22nd in the race. So both Ossella's drivers are clearly slower than the Tyrrells of Martin Brundle and Philippe Streiff, even though Alex Caffey has managed to hold Streiff up somehow, somewhat. And I think this is pretty much inevitable. Philippe Streiff got past Alex Caffey, but then Philippe Streiff did come into the pits while Caffey and Gonzalez stayed out for a few laps longer, which went well because Alex Caffey was then overtaken by Andrew de Cesaris in the Minardi and then eventually Alain Prost. Both drivers pitted and they came out with Alex Caffey in 7th and Gonzalez managing to claw back up into 2nd place. I'm not sure how Gonzalez managed to get past Cesaris and Prost again, but he just managed to do it. So it gave me some hope we might actually finally score some points from Monaco. That was pretty much everything to talk about for the race. The start was pretty exciting, but after the first pit stop onwards, the action kind of just fizzled out. So Martin Brundle won the race with de Cesaris taking 2nd and Alain Prost taking 3rd. But more importantly, Gonzalez finishing in 5th means we finally got scored some points. 2 points in fact, with Gonzalez taking 5th place. Theo Fabi got 6th and Ray Arnoux for the Ligier got 4th. So Gonzalez was now running 8th in the championship with Alain Prost and Brundle tying at the top with Ayrton Senna in 3rd place. So it was looking like it would be quite a tight championship. In the constructors, Tyrrell are leading by 1 point ahead of McLaren and Ossella are in 7th place, which is very, very good. Taking account we are in the real life team who were last out of the 13 teams competing, so getting 7th in the constructors so far is really, really good for us. Round 5 of the Grand Prix, we were at Spa and it's on all Ossella front row with the Arrows taking the 2nd row of Stewart and Boutsen. So Arrows, they've just been turning up, I guess. They've just came out, it just seemed out of nowhere that the Arrows would take the 2nd row, because realistically you would expect it to be McLaren or Williams, but it wasn't McLaren because Alain Prost in 8th and his teammate Keke Rosberg is in 16th. Williams was even worse. Williams' drivers Nelson Piquet in 10th and Nigel Mansell 21st. How can Williams just struggling all of a sudden? I mean, they've got like either the first or the second best car on the grid and they're just putting in shocking qualifying sessions. Then again, Ayrton Senna is in 7th and Joy Dumfries in 11th, and Dumfries has just been so far vastly outperformed by Senna. Only one car didn't make the 107% time, and that was Jacques Lafitte in the Ligier, so he would be taking part, but the rest of the drivers will take part. Off the start, Gonzalez and Caffey hold their positions to be 1st and 2nd on the field. Sadly, out of all the races so far, this was probably the most boring race so far this season. There really wasn't much to talk about, so there's practically no highlights to really address for the Belgian Grand Prix, except Martin Brundle getting past both Arrows and Thierry Boutsen in the other Arrows, falling down to 8th. But that was the only highlight throughout the entire race. It was just probably the most boring race so far this season. But even though it was boring, the important thing was we have a 1-2 finish for Ossella, which is a very, very good result for us. Martin Brundle getting 3rd for Tyrrell. 4th went to Mark Stewart in the Arrows, Senna got 5th for Lotus, and Alain Prost finished in 6th position. Very, very good result for Ossella. 15 points. Since 1st place you get 9, and it's 6 for 2nd place. Even though with 3rd place, Martin Brundle is leading the championship, about 3 points ahead of Alain Prost in the McLaren. And in the constructors, we launched ourselves into 2nd place, and we're 3 points behind Tyrrell for the lead of the constructors. Again, a very amazing result for Ossella. Next was the Canadian Grand Prix, and it was another front row for Ossella. Ready taking third place at Liège with Alan Prost in fourth, Andrea Cesaris in the minority got fifth, and Keke Rosberg was in sixth. The constructors leaders, which are Tyrrell at this point, Martin Brundle's down in 11th, and Philippe Streiff is down in 19th. They're leading the constructors, and they're all the way down, and they're so low down the field. Both Williamses 8th and 9th, which is again, they're underperforming. Aaron Senna's in 7th with Lotus. Where is his teammate, Johnny Dumfries? 15th. And as you can see, 6 people failed to make the 107% time, but it's only the bottom 3 who failed to make the 107% will not be taking part. So, Patrick Tomby in the Haslola, Jonathan Palmer in the Zach Speed, Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham. Those 3 drivers will not be racing, so only be 23 drivers taking part. On the formation lap, Alessandro Nannini, who qualified 21st, stalled his car and this had to start from the pit lane. Now, during the start, both Ossella drivers maintained first and second place, which was really good for us since we really need to get some more points to hopefully catch Tyrrell, remember, who started very low down the field. After Genzani and Caffey made their pit stops, it was becoming clear Alan Prost and Reynard New were really chasing down on both Osellas, since Caffey was overtaken by Liège and Prost. Now they had Cesaris and Stefan Johansson in the Ferrari in 6th. Ferrari we really haven't mentioned as much this season because they've been so low down the field and just never really climbed back up again. Even though they have scored points so far, but they've just been anonymous, that's the problem. Then again, it seems to be said for a lot of drivers so far this season, like both Williams drivers. They've got one of the best cars in the grid and they've just not been there at all. It was becoming clear to me at this point that there were a lot of people wanting to pit really early. Stefan Johansson, who was in 6th, losing the final point spot, lost the 6th place because he went in so early. His teammate Alboreto got to 5th, and Mark Sewer in the Arrows is back into the points in 6th, while Cesaris at some point just fell down the order and out of the points, and he was in 5th place when we last checked on him. But Genzani went to the pit, Alan Prost got out ahead of him. Bit of a disappointment, but to be honest, I'm okay with it because Prost is in probably the best car, while Ossella isn't a good car at all. However, we were still 2nd and 4th after both drivers came in for their 2nd and final pit stops, being separated by Reynard New, who's in 3rd place. That to me was a pretty good result. And that's pretty much how the result ended. 2nd and 4th for both Osellas. A very good result. Prost won the race predictably, with Arnew taking 3rd place at Liège. Liège seems to just come out of nowhere from time to time. And number 7, it was the American Grand Prix at Detroit City. Now I know it says qualifying time to the IDA, that's not really true. It's actually the American Grand Prix in Detroit. It's because of the patch. It just acts a bit funny. But anyway, as you can probably tell, in pole position it was Jonathan Palmer for Zach Speed, which is pretty much the shock of the season so far. Even though Alex Caffey for Ossella is in 2nd place. Alan Prost was 3rd with Ayrton Senna in 4th, Nigel Mansell in 5th, and Andrew Cesaris 6th. So this, apart from Palmer, Caffey and Cesaris, there's a bit of normality in the top 6. But it wasn't particularly great for Ossella because Genzani's down 14th in the grid. And Tyrrell, who are currently leading at this point, they're in 5th, they qualified 15th, and Brundle is out in 25th. So 5 people did not make within the 107% time. Alan Jones, Mark Brundle, Ross and Gates will not be taking part, while Nannini for Minardi and Elo De Angelis for Brabham will. As if things can get worse for Stella, Alex Caffey, who qualified 2nd, just mysteriously disappeared, and this will not be taking part for the Grand Prix either. So all I had was Genzani, who is now 13th on the grids, and Genzani alone, so really not good. At the very start, as if things could get worse for people, Jonathan Palmer, who qualified pole position, had stalled his car and there he had immediately retired despite getting pole position. Really bad luck for Jonathan Palmer in that exact speed, who got the back market car to pole position only to retire at the very start. First to retire, Thierry Boutsen. Now that's not really interesting because he was low down the field along with Gonzani. Well, even though he was a few places behind Gonzani, but he's first to retire. But that's not going to be the end of the story about who retires from this race. Not by a long shot. Nigel Mansell retired from 3rd place after lap 9, along with Alessandro Nannini, who was down 19th. Is that the end of the story and retirements of this Grand Prix? No, not even close. Next driver to fall, Elo D'Angelis from the Brabham, who was last of the runners, so it didn't make any impact at all, but still more retirements to come. Riccardo Gonzani was the next to retire, so which means we weren't going to score any points. But to be fair, Gonzani was stuck in midfield and he was hardly going to get any points out of it. It didn't look like. Just wasn't the Grand Prix for Ossella, was it? Driver to retire from this race was Gerhard Berger from 2nd place, who was chasing after Alain Prost to take the lead of the race. So with Gerhard Berger out the way, Keke Rosberg, Prost's teammate, makes his way into 2nd place. Ricard Patrese in the other Brabham has also retired, so no points for Brabham this Grand Prix either. Next driver to fall on lap 39, Michele Alboreto from 5th place. And very shortly afterwards, a whole lap behind in 10th place, Mark Sewer had also retired, which means we're now down to just 11 runners. Next driver to fall, Teo Fabi from 9th place, bringing us down to 10 cars still running. Afterwards, Philippe Streif and Jacques Lafitte retire at the same time. Now we're down to only 8 runners. Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna are the next to go. That means we are now down to just 6 drivers. Piquet was the next and last driver to have retired from the race. Yes, what I'm telling you is, only 5 people were still running by the end of the race. Just 5 out of the 22 drivers who took part actually made it to the end of the Grand Prix. So Keke Rosberg won that race, Andrew Cesaris finished in 2nd, and Stefan Johansson took the final podium spot, Arnoux taking 4th, and Tambe in 5th place despite being 5 laps down on the driver ahead of him. Drivers' Championship, not much was changed because of the amount of retirements we had and the drivers who scored points. But in the Constructors, only one team hasn't scored points now, and that's Zach Speed. So Jonathan Palmer stalling his car on the grid proved to be quite a fatal blow to the team. Okay, round 8 was at Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix, just to quickly clear that up because obviously the patch giving off the wrong place in the wrong country. It's the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. Teo Fabi gained pole position with Alboreto in the Ferrari 2nd place, with Gonzani taking 3rd and the other driver of Cafe in 13th. Gonzalez has been consistently probably the better driver this season. It's quite just the Alboreto 2nd and Johansson 5th because Ferrari have been largely absent throughout the season because they were usually quite far down the field. Speaking down the field, the former leaders of Tyrrell, they're 18th and 23rd on the grid, so very far behind. Williams 10th and 11th, again not sure what's up with Williams there because we have Alessandro Nannini who qualified 8th for Minardi and his teammate Andrej Cesaris is all the way down in 22nd, so I'm not sure what that's all about, how Nannini is so far up the field ahead of Andrej Cesaris. But anyway, enough talk about the grid, let's get on with the race and see what happens there. Formation lap, Martin Brundle, who qualified in 23rd, has still his car clear to start from the pit lane. start of the race, Joy Dumfries, who qualified 14th, stalled his car, so he was out of the race before it even started. On the 4th lap of the race, Prost overtook Genzani to take 3rd place, which is kind of expected because Prost is in a much faster car than Genzani is in his Ossella. By about the 8th lap, Gerhard Berger also got past Genzani to take 4th place, while his teammate Teo Fabi is still leading ahead of Alboreto and Prost, so makes sense. But then Stefan Johansson in the Ferrari overtaking Genzani to take 5th place off him, so now Genzani was holding on to a single point just ahead of Keke Rosberg and Alessandro Nannini. I mean, surely Genzani can outrun Nannini, but Keke Rosberg, well, it wouldn't surprise me if Keke Rosberg overtook him also. And speaking of Genzani, Alex Caffey still stuck in 14th behind René Arnoux and the Ligier. Now, Ligier have not been that consistent. They've either been up or they've been down, really. It just doesn't seem to be two ways about it. They've just been either they've been doing well or they're not. And in the last few races, they definitely have been struggling. Poor Jonathan Power retired for this race again. Now, I know Power was at the back of the field and he's in a Zach speed, but Jonathan Power, just remember, he did get pole position in Zach speed, so I can't help but feel sorry for Power at this point. He's tried so hard, and when he gets a pole position, it just slips away instantly. He gets on pole. Cafe comes into the pits to make his first pit stop, which is interesting. But what happens is when he immediately comes out the pits, Genzani retired. I've got no idea why he'd retired, and as you can probably see on the screen here is when their first pit stops were due in the same lap. That was because Alex Caffey missed his pit box. He meant to pit a lap earlier, but he missed the pit box because he was a lap behind Genzani. So yeah, that's fun times when Caffey comes into the pit at the exact same time the other driver comes in. It's really annoying at times. You put them in separate laps, but they end up coming in at the same time regardless. And obviously you can see the track was dry, so I pitted Caffey early to hopefully get the undercut. Spoiler alert, it did not work. Dropped down to 9th place by Nigel Mansell, but he soon get back 8th again because Mark Suhr had retired, but just before Alex Caffey went back into the pits again, where it appeared he was going to drop even more positions, being overtaken by Senna. But it turned out that not to be the case. He got ahead of Senna and regained 8th position. Very shortly after Alex Caffey did his second pit stop, the race was practically over since we hit the 2-hour time limit. Teo Fabi, an uneventful win for him, with Michele Alboreto taking 6th for Ferrari and Alain Prost taking 3rd for McLaren. The results screen showed that Genzani had spun a circuit while he was in a points position. Really wasn't ideal at all. In the Drivers' Championship, Alain Prost was a 9-point leader with 2nd place Genzani, with Martin Brundle still 3rd in the Drivers' Championship with 19 points, ahead of the minority of Chesers and Senna, who are both on 14 points. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have a 13-point lead over 2nd place Ossella, while Teo Fabi winning the race only has Benetton in 4th in the Constructors. I'm kind of surprised Tyrrell is still 3rd at this point since they've been disappearing in the recent races, but to hold on to 3rd place for him, that's pretty good still. Round 9 was at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix in Great Britain, and Gerhard Berger taking pole position for Benetton, with Alex Caffey taking 2nd place. The 2nd row was held by Andre De Cesaris in the minority and Ayrton Senna in 4th place, while Genzani and Prost making up the 3rd row and approach the championship contenders so far. Now, as you could probably tell, 2 people are missing from the board. That's because Mark Suhr in the Arrows and Riccardo Patrese for the Brabham did not set a lap time and therefore will not be racing. Neither will both Haslolas and Jacques Lafitte in the Ligier, so there will be only 21 cars starting, which is probably the fewest starters we've had so far this season. Well, I thought there'd only be 21 cars starting, as Cathy just randomly disappeared, so there'll only be 20 cars. So Genzai we're starting 4th and not 5th now. Off the starting line, Martin Brundle, who qualified in 14th place, stalled his car and thus he had retired immediately. Quite early on in the race, just 3 laps into the race, we had 3 retirements come in thick and fast. Joy Dumfries, Nelson Piquet and Stefan Johansson all retiring within just 4 laps of this race. At the American race we're having a retirements galore. Mansell and Streif retiring. Thierry Boutsen then retiring, and very shortly after this, Prost and Fabi also retiring. So Prost won't be scoring any points, so if Genzai has a chance to catch up on points from Prost, it was this very race. Much for Alain Prost retiring for Picard Genzai to capitalise on that. Genzani retires on lap 21 out of 72, so really annoying, but I guess just got to suck it up and deal with it, because then again McLaren's in a much better car than Ossella is, so I can't really complain too much. After Genzani's retirement, Andrej Cesaris, who was in 5th place, had retired in his Minardi. It did push his teammate Nini into the points in 6th, but whether he will stay up there, who knows, especially when there's only 8 runners left in the Grand Prix. And after a while later, something big happened. Gerhard Berger retired from the lead of the race at the same time as Hub Rothengater was from the last of the runners. Only 6 cars remained, which means no matter when or if they retire, they still have a point guaranteed. And that's including Alessandro Nini in the Minardi. After Berger's and Rothengater's retirement, the action pretty much died down to the end of the race, so Ayrton Senna took the win for his Lotus, with Michele Alboreto in 2nd and Renier New rounding up the top 3. So, like the American Grand Prix, we only had 5 finishers in that race, just 5. And take into account there were 20 who started, so a lot of retirements. Keke Rosberg was 4th, D'Angelo Swift and Nini got the last point, finishing 6th despite retiring. So in the Drivers' Championship, Ayrton Senna becoming a championship contender with 23 points, with 6 behind Alain Prost. And in the Constructors, McLaren are still way out ahead, but Senna holding into 2nd, and Ferrari all of out of nowhere coming 3rd in the Constructors, with Lotus tying 4th with Tyrrell. At round 10 of the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, and you can see both the third drivers made the front row. They were really quick with the do or die instruction on. They were about 3 and 4 seconds quicker than Ayrton Senna in 3rd place, so it does give me a lot of hope for the race. So Ayrton Senna took 3rd, Berger and Theo Fabi for Benetton in 4th and 5th, and Ricard Patrese for Brabham in 6th. Now I think this is probably Brabham's best qualifying result this season, with Ricard Patrese making 6th place on the grid. As you can see, only 11 people made the 107% time, but also you probably can notice there are 2 drivers missing. Both Ferrari drivers of Michele Alboreto and Stefan Johansson for some reason did not set a time in qualifying. Also, they did not set that time in practice either, so really suspicious. So we only have 21 people starting, because both Haas Lolas and Nelson Piquet for Williams are the bottom 3 drivers that didn't make the 107% time. Okay, you probably know this, but Alex Cappy's gone missing again, so we only have 20 drivers taking part, so everyone who was behind 2nd place all move up a position. So yeah, it's really annoying that keeps happening, that one driver just mysteriously disappears after qualifying. On the formation lap, in 18th place, Joy Dumfries had stalled his car, and in the race, guess who stalled his car? Gerhard Berger from 4th in the grid had stalled his car and thus he had to be taken out of the race immediately. Things were looking really up for this race, especially for Gonzalez, especially after its first pit stop. He still came out ahead of everyone. It seemed up to the top 9 drivers seemed to be pitting on the same lap, coincidentally, as Gonzalez did. Even though a few of them, after the first pit stop window, had got stop-go penalties, and thankfully Gonzalez wasn't one of them. There wasn't really lots of action going on until Mark Sir from 7th place had retired from the race. To the end of the race there has been very little activity, since at the end of the first pit stop window, but Piccolo Gonzalez wins the race for Ossella, with Teo Fabi taking 2nd for Benetton, Ayrton Senna taking 3rd for Lotus. A very good result for us indeed, especially I don't think Prost scored any points at all this race, which would give Gonzalez a fighting chance in the Drivers' Championship. Mansell came in 4th for Williams, Ricard Patrese for Brabham got 5th, and Alan Prost did get 6th, so he got 1 point compared to Gonzalez's 9 points. In the Drivers' Championship, the gap between Prost and Gonzalez was now 1 point, and Ayrton Senna was 3 points behind Prost, so it's a very close battle so far for the Drivers' Championship from 3 drivers from 3 different teams. In the Constructors, McLaren's gap between Ossella and the Championship has shrunk down to 8 points. So again, it's becoming very close. The 11th round for qualifying was at the Hungarian Grand Prix at Hungaroring, and both Ossellas obliterated the qualifying again. Gonzalez was 2 seconds quicker than Ascaffi. Then we had Ella De Angelis in 3rd place for Brabham, which is an amazing result for Brabham. Thierry Boutsen getting 4th place. Thierry Boutsen is proven to be quite a decent driver this season. Alain Prost in 5th place, the current Drivers' Championship leader, and 6th place was Ayrton Senna Lotus, who is currently in 3rd and is still pretty much a contender for the title. As you can see, only 8 cars made within the 107% time. They were just that quick. But then the gap between 4th and 5th is 2 seconds, like the gap from 1st and 2nd is also 2 seconds. But the 3 people who aren't going to take part in the race are both Hasselers again, and Hub, Ross and Gator for 6 speeds. Now, off the start grid, both Ossella drivers were able to keep the 1st and 2nd spots off the line, which does give off a very good piece of hope that we might get a 1-2 victory at the Hungaroring, though I'm not taking it for granted. But at the very start of the race, Keke Rosberg with a 10-second stop-go penalty, not ideal for McLaren, especially since they're trying to defend that title from Ossella. It seemed chaos started to ensue for a lot of drivers because PK, Boutsen, De Angelis and various other drivers all came to the pits and they all lost a whole ton of possessions because they just pitted too early. So this would have been a massive shot to the heart for Arrows and Brabham, especially since De Angelis and Boutsen qualified so high for both teams, that the fact that they now fallen out of the points just by pitting too early it's gotta be really gut-wrenching for the 2 teams at this point. Michele Alboreto in 7th place, who is in contention to score some points, ended up retiring, and actually he was running in 3rd place at one point, blocking off Prost from trying to catch up to both Ossella drivers. So Alboreto did kind of do us a bit of a favour, but it's kind of a shame that the Ferrari team is still struggling this season. Teo Fabi in the Benetton had eventually retired, but delightful news for us was that and there you go, Alain Prost had retired from the race. That was going to give us such a huge advantage in both the Constructors' Championship because Rosberg had already retired from the race early on, but also the Drivers' Championship. Gonzalez might actually catch Prost to lead the championship. So this is a very, very big moment, especially since Ghinzani came on to finish the race for a Ossella 1-2. Well, not exactly, because Ghinzani ended up retiring from the lead of the race, but Alex Caffey took the win and Ghinzani managed to remain in second place, and René Arnoux rounded up the podium for Ligier. Ligier actually seems to starting to make some kind of comeback. They're just now managing to get into the points now. Nigel Mansell finished in 4th for Williams, Ayrton Senna took 5th for Lotus, and Riccardo Patrese, who did brilliant in qualifying for Brabham, managed to salvage a point, though sadly for Thierry Boutsen in the Arrows, he couldn't replicate that. But in the Drivers' Championship, Ghinzani now had a 5-point lead over Prost and a 6-point lead over Senna. And also we've taken the lead in the Constructors' Championship by 7 points. So advantage Ossella and advantage Ghinzani in particular. Round 12 this time, and it's at the A1 ring in Austria, not as it says Magny Core, obviously, just not to get people confused. Picard and Ghinzani get another pole position, but this time Tail Fabi is in second place, ahead of Caffey and Senna, who are on the second row of the grid. Both Ferraris make up the third row, so Ferrari having a very, very inconsistent season still. Alain Prost, Ghinzani's competitor this season, is down in 8th place, where his teammates in 10th. Now, only 5 people didn't make the 107% time, but the 3 people not taking part are both Haslolas and René Arnoux, who finished 3rd in the last race. He finished in 3rd, and this time he doesn't even qualify to compete to race in the A1 ring. Well, as the 3 people had taken part, as Caffey disappeared again, so it's just Ghinzani once more. So we make our way to the formation lap, and Gerhard Berger, who qualified 23rd, has stalled his car, so he has to start from the pit lane. And we get into the race, and Johnny Dumfries, who qualified 7th, stalled his car, and at the very start, Ghinzani lost 2 positions, being obtained by Tail Fabi, and Stefan Johansson drops down to 3rd place. Okay, so people were coming to the pits because the track started to get wet. And Ghinzani thankfully was only 12 seconds behind Fabi and Johansson, so there was a chance Ghinzani might get something out of this. So I just waited for the opportunity to just wait till people started to pit and then call Ghinzani in and see if I could get the jump. Well, I'm lying, I wasn't actually paying attention because I was just watching the race, so because I was just practically out on dry tires and I wasn't even paying attention to the screen, so I had no idea the rain was actually on. So yeah, I think you can see where this is going. When Ghinzani came to pit, that's when I finally realised that I wasn't paying attention, but when he came back out, the situation wasn't as bad as I thought. He actually came out in second. He was 40 seconds behind Tail Fabi, but he immediately retired after that. The same time as Cesaris did, and then Tail Fabi from the lead of the race, he ended up retiring from the race also, so that means Ayrton Senna got the lead, and Alain Prost in second, so he can pretty much pull the trick we did from the last race, and that was when he retired, we got maximum points, so this was Prost's chance to nab those points back that we've taken away from him in the last Grand Prix. Really troubling. Stuff to take note about: Nigel Mansell was in 4th until he retired from the race. Now, when he retired from the race, that put Jonathan Palmer in that exact speed into a point position, so Palmer has got an opportunity to finally score Zach Speed's first points this entire season after 12 races, since Zach Speed are the only team to have scored 0 points. Michele Alboreto retires in 4th place as Jonathan Palmer came into the pits again to hope, and it did look like Palmer would end up at 6th place. He'd be overtaken by Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham. So It was still looking hopeful that Palmer would finally score points, but more worryingly at this point, Senna and Prost were still leading the race, as them along with Gonzalez are the championship contenders. Very, very dull and uneventful race after Burger Town. There were no really any positional changes. Jonathan Palmer, though, in the second speed managed to get to 6th place, and it looked like it was going to score points, but him and Stefan Johansson from 3rd place retired at the same time, which means they probably collide with each other, which is really, really disappointing, because this is the second opportunity in a row that Palmer had to scoring points with Zach Speed, so Zach Speed would no longer be the only team with no points, but that opportunity has just gone out the window for him again. The race had ended up with Ayrton Senna winning for Lotus, Alain Prost got second for McLaren, and Martin Brundle back in the podium spot for Tyrrell. Ricard Patrese taking 4th, Mark Stern 5th, and the last point went to Prost teammate Rosberg in 6th place. So, been a really, really boring race most of it, but it's got some pretty interesting results out of it. So Ayrton Senna now leading the championship ahead of Prost, Gonzalez in 3rd, but it's still a very, very close battle between the 3 drivers. Ossella and McLaren tied on points in the Constructors' Championship, so the race to win the Constructors is still very close, just as the Drivers' Championship is. Round 13 at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and it's another Ossella front row. Gonzalez 6/10 faster than his teammate Cafe, taking account they're both in the front row. Alain Prost, one of the championship contenders, is in 3rd place with his teammate Keke Rosberg, making it the 2nd row. Ayrton Senna, the 3rd driver who's currently leading and is the championship contender, is all the way down in 10th place. And as you can see, only the top 10 drivers made the 107% time, but it's both Haslolas and Jacques Lafitte who won't be taking part for the Italian Grand Prix. Off the start line, both Gonzalez and Cafe managed to stay ahead of both McLarens of Prost and Rosberg, so a really, really good start there, but let's hope that we were able to keep the top 2 places. On the 17th lap, Alain Prost came into the pits while Cafe came into the pits in lap 18 and Gonzalez came into the pits on lap 19, which gave both Ossella drivers the advantage and as well the jump over Prost, so we were able to maintain 1st and 2nd. Track soon drives, which means I had to get both drivers back into the pits as quick as I possibly could so they could keep their lead. Unfortunately, Tail Fabi, who came up out of nowhere, at some point overtook Alain Prost, which means there's a good chance we can put a bigger dent in the points for the Drivers' Championship, especially when Senna was currently in 7th place, who would score no points from this race. It came to the end of the race, but the last final twist in the race, Tail 5 from 3rd place retired, which put Prost back into 3rd place, so Prost would score 4 points while Gonzalez would score 9, and Ayrton Senna would get back in the points to score 1 point. So but either way, it was still a 1-2 for Ossella, which is very, very good news for us, especially since we would be ahead of the McLarens in the Constructors' Championship. So very, very few races to go, and it's really hotting up. A 4-point lead over Gonzalez. Now Gonzalez gets 4 points ahead of Alain Prost and 5 points ahead of Senna, so it's still very tight with 3 races to go. And we have an 8-point lead over McLaren now. So we are guaranteed 2nd Constructors' Championship because Lotus, who are in 3rd, are too far behind to catch us now. After the Italian race at Monza, 2 people were either ill or injured, and 2 of them were from Zach Speed. Hub Rothengater, who is the 2nd driver at Zach Speed, and Louis Peresala, who is Zach Speed's test driver. So what that meant was, for the next Grand Prix, there will be only one Zach Speed driver on the 14th round, and that's Jonathan Palmer in the Zach Speed. So for the next race, there would be only 25 cars taking part. That's if all of them can make the 107% time. Anyway, speaking of round 14, here were the qualifying results for the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril. Now, as you can see, we have a new pole sitter, and that's Alessandro Nannini in the Minardi, with Giancarlo Gonzalez taking second. Both Benetton drivers took the second row of the grid, Ayrton Senna, one of the championship contenders, in 5th, and the other contender being Alain Prost down in 6th. Alex Caffey qualified all the way down in 10th place, which was a bit disappointing. Only 2 people did make the 107% time. Patrick Tambay and Andrew De Cesaris will not be taking part for this race. So, how will this race go? Jonathan Power, the only Sax Speed driver, qualified all the way down in 21st, so it's not been a good season for Sax Speed all round. The only team haven't scored points, and now we're a race where they only are able to have one driver compete in it. Off the start line, both drivers managed to hold their positions to be in 2nd and 10th, though that didn't last particularly long, as Gerhard Berger overtook Giancarlo Gonzalez to take 2nd place. Alessandro had a 10-second stop-go penalty, which gave Berger the race lead very early on. It was really quickly becoming clear that both Ossella drivers were going to really struggle. Gonzalez losing 3rd place to Ayrton Senna, and Alex Caffey dropping down to 11th because of Keke Rosberg getting past him. Theo Fabi did retire from the race quite early on in the Benetton, who was somewhere between Gonzalez and Caffey, so Caffey got back his 10th place because of that. So that's really not helpful, especially since he was not in a point position yet. But Ayrton Senna retiring, that's a big deal, especially since Gonzalez is back into 3rd place. Gerhard Berger and Alessandro Nannini both retiring at the same time, so the original pole sitter and the driver who was currently leading the race retiring. So that was a very, very big moment there, especially since Alex Caffey is in 5th and Gonzalez is back in the lead. Giancarlo Gonzalez came into the pits while leading the race for new tyres, since it's going to be a permanent joint track, but sadly Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell both managing to get the jump on Giancarlo Gonzalez, so Gonzalez was down to 3rd, with Nigel Mansell who's pretty much been absent this season, but Alain Prost being one of the championship contenders. This was not a really good situation, but Keke Rosberg being in 5th in front of Alex Caffey means they've got a good chance of reducing the gap in the Constructors' Championship also. I wish there was more to talk about the race, but after Gonzalez dropped down to 3rd, he was overtaken by Mansell and Prost by the end of the first pit stop phase. It was practically a stalemate for the entire race. There wasn't really that much overtaking going on. So Gonzalez and Caffey managing to hold 3rd and 6th, which means 5 points going to Ossella, but it was going to be 8 points to McLaren, because Nigel Mansell won the race for Williams, Prost took 2nd, Gonzalez was 3rd, Johnny Dumfries taking 4th place, Keke Rosberg was in 5th, and Alex Caffey was in 6th. So they didn't get that much more points over Ossella, but the fact the gap has been reduced, that's the key thing here. As you can see, a very, very close contest between Gonzalez and Prost for the title, especially since Senna retired from the race, so that's been a huge blow to him. But we have a 7-point lead over McLaren. That's not as big a gap as you probably think it is, but there was one piece of very, very, very big news, which is just coming up just now, that Sax Speed had gone bankrupt. So having 2 drivers going out wasn't bad enough, they had gone bankrupt. So Palmer, Rosengate and Luis Perez Sala all don't have a driver's seat anymore. So here is the transfer table, just to confirm about the team going bankrupt. So all 3 drivers are now left without a driver's seat for the rest of the season, at least. Round 15, the penultimate round at the Mexican Grand Prix. Gerhard Berger took pole position with Picard Gonzalez taking second. Mark Stewart in the Arrows in third and the other Benetton driver of Tail Fabio in fourth. The championship contender of Alain Prost is qualified in 5th place with Alex Cafe taking 6th. Alain Prost taking 5th in the grid is definitely worrying, especially since he still has a good opportunity to put a massive dent in the constructors between McLaren and Ossella, even though his teammate Keke Rosberg is all the way down in 9th. Only one driver did make the 110% time, and that was Jacques Lafitte in the Ligier, so Jacques Lafitte would not be taking part for the Grand Prix. The Mexican City race started with Gonzalez holding second, and as Cafe overtakes Alain Prost to take 5th place. So a very, very good start for both Ossella drivers there already. However, Gonzalez dropping down to 4th after being overtaken by Mark Stewart and Teo Fabi in the other Benetton. So a good start to keep McLaren at bay, but not such a good start for the Drivers' Championship state-wise. Gonzalez comes to his first pit stop and he comes behind his teammate Alex Cafe, which is not particularly great, especially since Gonzalez is the one battling for the championship and not Alex Cafe. But when we get Alex Cafe to come into the pits, he starts slipping down the order and ends up in 8th place. So, and even worse, Alain Prost got past Picard Gonzalez by the time Alex Cafe got the pits. So, not really going well, especially since Ayrton Senna has also passed Gonzalez, which means there's a good gap opening between Prost and Gonzalez for points in the Drivers' Championship. The situation with Picard Gonzalez got even worse by the end of the second pit stops, because René Arnoux in the Ligier manages to overtake Gonzalez, which knocks both the third drivers out of the points. So Alain Prost has got a very good opportunity to overtake Gonzalez in the Drivers' Championship, with Gonzalez scoring no points to Alain Prost's 3 points potentially. Mark Stewart in 3rd place retiring put Alain Prost into a podium position, so Prost will have 4 points compared to Gonzalez 0. So Berger won the race for a Benetton 1-2 with Alain Prost taking 3rd place. So I was kind of shaking my head a little bit. Senna took 4th, Stewart in 5th, and René Arnoux took the last point. So it would definitely make the final Grand Prix interesting to see who would come out top, Alain Prost or Picard Gonzalez, McLaren versus Ossella, especially since the gap between them is only 2 points. Ayrton Senna 8 points behind, which means the only way he would win the championship is he win the race and Prost and Gonzalez score nothing. But the chance of that would be very unlikely. And in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren only have only 1 point away from Ossella, so it would be a very, very dramatic ending to the first season of the 1986 mods. Results for the 16th and final Grand Prix qualifying, which is taking place at Adelaide. Well, it looks like McLaren have got a huge advantage over Ossella, because Alex Cafe is last place, 3 seconds behind the second to last place driver, so both Haas Lolas and Alex Cafe for Ossella won't be racing in the final race. Picard Gonzalez is all the way down in 9th, with both McLaren's 4th and 5th. So all Benetton front row, Senna in 3rd, Michele Alboreto is in 6th, so but just remember, this race can be decided if Senna, Prost or Gonzalez will win the championship, but Prost has got an advantage mainly because of where he's placed on the grid and where Gonzalez is placed on the grid. So, how will this final race go? Let's just get on there and see what happens. The start of the race at Adelaide did not get off to a good one for Gonzalez. He dropped down to 10th place, being overtaken by Mark Stewart in the Arrows. In fact, by the 8th lap of the race, Picard Genzani dropped from 9th all the way down to last place in 20th. So really bad start there for Ossella, and I don't really see it improving at all. Quite a bit further into the race, since it's one of the races where a lot of activity was happening, Teo Fabi retired from the lead of the Grand Prix. So a chance for Benetton 1-2, well, it just disappeared on the face of the earth for this final race. So it put both McLaren's 3rd and 4th, which well, it doesn't really matter at this point because Genzani was so far behind. It didn't really matter where Genzani finished. All I knew is there was no chance Genzani was going to score points, no matter what happens to the other drivers ahead of him. Pretty much a lot further into the race, Gerhard Berger, who was leading the race, ended up retiring exactly the same way his teammate Teo Fabi did, retiring from the lead of the Grand Prix. That put Ayrton Senna in the lead and Prost in second. Now, Senna could win the championship, but Alain Prost would have to score no points for Senna to have enough points to win the Drivers' Championship. So, unless Prost basically retires, then Prost has won the Drivers' Championship between the pair of them. Even though Genzani had retired from the race eventually, there was still a lot of tension between the two championship competitors of Senna and Prost. Senna won the race, Prost finishing second and has won the championship, and his teammate Keke Rosberg finished in 3rd place for McLaren. So McLaren have won the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship for this first season of the 1986 mod of Formula 1. So the end of the season shows that Alain Prost wins the Drivers' Championship by 5 points ahead of Ayrton Senna in the Lotus, with Genzani impressively getting 3rd place with 48 points. Then we had a massive jump between 3rd and 4th with Keke Rosberg with only 26 points, just one ahead of Alex Caffey. Then you got Nigel Mansell, who in 6th with 24 points. And then you got both Martin Brundle and Gerhard Berger tying on points for 23. You then got Teo Fabi, who just finished with 22 points in 9th place, just behind his teammate Gerhard Berger. René Arnoux close behind with 20 points for Ligier, just ahead of Michele Alboreto with 19 points. Andre Cesaris did pretty well in his minority to get 14 points, just ahead of Mark Suhr, who was occasionally in and out of the points for Arrows. Nelson Piquet, Petresi and Stefan Johansson all with 7 points each, where Nelson Piquet, in my opinion, massively underperformed this season, especially since he's driving for Williams. Further down the leaderboard, we got Joy Dumfries, who is Senna's teammate, with only 6 points, where his teammate had over 50 points, so Joy Dumfries was massively outperformed by his own teammate. Philippe Street with only 4 points, again massively outperformed by his teammate Martin Brundle, who was in the top 8. Patrick Tambay scored 2 points for Hassola, and they were the only 2 points Hassola got this season. Elo De Angelis with only 2 points for Brabham, and Alessandro Nini has only scored 1 point for his entire season. Taking into account he had a pole position at Estoril for the Portuguese Grand Prix. Then you got Hubroth and Guillaume Palmer, who got no points for the now bankrupt Sachs Speed, and Jacques Lafitte, who didn't score any points, where his teammate René Arnoux got about 20 points. Also, just a quick peek who else didn't score any points: Alan Jones in the Hassola and Thierry Boutsen in the other Arrows, who didn't score any points this season. So now let's check the Constructors. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren with Alain Prost and Keke Rosberg won the Constructors' Championships by just 9 points. So Genzani, who finished 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, and Alex Caffey scored 25 points, still pulled off a very decent result for a backmarket team like Ossella. Lotus came in 3rd with Ayrton Senna scoring 51 out of the 57 points Lewis scored. Benetton of Teo Fabi and Gerhard Berger, they both got around about the same amount of points, but they still did very well to finish in 4th. Williams were pretty lucky to get 5th because they massively underperformed this season of Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet. Tyrrell, who did lead the Constructors very early on, just disappeared and to get 6th, well, I'm kind of lucky they didn't finish any lower than that. Ferrari, who are largely absent throughout this season of Formula 1, ended up in 7th, and Ligier, where Renault scored all 20 points of the team, finished in 8th. And checking out the rest of the constructors, Minardi got 15 points, where Chichester scored 14 of them and Nannini only scored 1. Arrows, Mark Seward scored all 13 points for Arrows. Brabham, they managed to get 9 points, even though for the first half of the season they practically were absent. And Hasselt, Patrick Tomby scored 2 points for the team, and that was it. And Zach Speed, who are unclassified, who scored no points because they were bankrupt after the 14th round of the F1 season. So I hope you enjoyed this first season. Stick around for the second season where we'll show you all the driver transfers, and also we'll find out what will happen in the second season of this 1986 mod. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it. I'll see you in the second season of the 1986 mod. So thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye!